Warning: the five may contain discussions on topics such as death, suicide, rape, addiction, and abuse. Although these topics are approached in a therapeutic manner, they still may have triggering effects on some individuals. Viewer discretion is advised.
Human beings are crafted through experience. Each person, from the closest of friend to the most random of stranger, has a unique story crafted by the ultimate experience that we call life. Welcome to the five. The same five questions, a completely different experience every time.
I met today's guest online where we formed a really quick friendship. He's just a really genuine guy, really nice guy, and he's one of those guys that you just know have a lot of interesting stories. So I'm actually really excited to hear his stories today myself. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Right. My name is Will Bradley. I am 57. I am living in Palm Springs currently after living in Philadelphia all of my life. So I've lived in Palm Springs now for a year. I was married for 20 years. I have three children. Liam, 24, Reagan, 23, Colin, going to be 21. And my daughter Reagan has a son, so he's going to be 20 months. And in all of that, I am a gay male. So I have had a bit of a journey from being married and having kids, which is something that I wanted to do. It's not something I did to hide or something that, although in a way I was hiding, obviously, but so that was a journey itself. Been here in Palm Springs for a year, and the first few months I was sort of 1 foot here, 1 foot still back in Philly, and just the gravity of not seeing your kids and your family was just sort of pulling at me. But I got past that, knowing that I can get on an airplane and go home and see them. It's sort of the hard part is, my kids are the same, 2 months, 3 months down the line, but a grandchild in 2 months, 3 months changes a hell of a lot. So that part is hard, but I had my kids' blessing when I came out here, and they're happy for me. And we've had a journey in ourselves from the time I sort of came out to now. So that's pretty much in a nutshell about me. But I guess we will delve deeper, won't we?
I was fixing to say that's a good introduction, but we're just about to get a little bit deeper.
We're ready to get deep and sometimes shallow. For my Twitter fans.
I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You can answer them however you like. And I'm actually going to shuffle it up just a little bit on this one and swap one of them out. So I'm going to ask you, what's the scariest thing that's ever happened to you?
Gosh, the scariest thing. Unfortunately, the scariest thing might also interlap with the saddest thing, because about 5 years ago, I thought taking a bottle of sleeping pills was a good solution for my life, or for the people around me, that they'd be better off. So that's the scariest thing that happened to me. Especially when you get to a point where I knew I was at a point of no return, and something inside me was like, this really isn't for me. And I somehow yelled out for help and got help. And not to start this on a downer, but it's going to be positive. I got help, and from that, 3 things happened, because I had to go to the hospital. So going to the hospital, I had tried to commit suicide, and then I was also, health-wise, I was not in good health. So it was revealed that I had been ignoring that I was HIV positive. So I was probably down to about 130 pounds, and in denial that there was anything wrong with me. I guess the scary part is that you would think that people around me would think there was something wrong with me, since I'm about 195 now. That's my normal weight. But anyway, so my kids and family sort of got a triple whammy of, their dad just tried to commit suicide, their dad is gay, and their dad has HIV. Not that it's fun, but the good thing is for me, hitting rock bottom was a good thing. Is it good for everybody? No, but I finally could exhale. I didn't have to worry about my health because now it's out in the open and I could get help. My kids, I didn't have to hide who I was with my kids or my family or my friends. That was like being Bruce Wayne and being Batman for all my life. That is a heavy juggling job. And finally, it was nice to just put those fucking juggling batons down and start to be me. And it happened really quick. I mean, I was in the hospital, and then, they're like, you have to go upstairs. So they're like, you go involuntarily or you go voluntarily. So I took the voluntary route, knowing that that would get me out the quickest. And within a few days, I had already reawakened somehow. And I was after 2 days, I mean, I was a little claustrophobic at first, but then I stopped taking whatever medication they wanted to give me after 2 doses, and they were good with that. And then I just was like, while everybody else was on their medication and sleeping in their beds, I went to all the little meetings, and every shift change, I was always walking and smiling and letting them know that I'm good. So I got out within a week, and that was the beginning of me. I mean, I seen my doctor, so I went from 130 pounds to 170, then back to my 190 within 3 to 4 months. I started a new job that wasn't crazy stressful. I was, being divorced, I was going between staying at my divorced house, where at that time my ex-wife was like, you really can't stay here that much. And then I'd go to my mom's house, which was near my work, and she wasn't crazy about me staying there at the time. And I had a job that was just making me feel like I had a lead weight around my neck, just pulling me underwater. Interject a lot of times when people hear about somebody has committed suicide, or they're like, oh my God, they did that to their kids, they did that to their family, they did that. One thing I do want to put out there, when that darkness hits you, I always liken it to you can be the best swimmer in the world, but if you are in the ocean and the riptide takes you, the riptide takes you. It doesn't matter how good of a swimmer you are. And that's how I always try to put across to people who can't understand. When you get a certain type of darkness in you, you're not doing things because you want to. It's just your head is telling you this is for the best. And it's hard to explain that. It's hard to get everybody to understand that. But hey, we also don't understand why Republicans do what they do either. So I'm not going to get any politics besides that. Anyway, but anyway, I mean, from there, I had a job that I was happy with, and people were happy with me. I started getting into the art that I do, that I put up on Instagram and stuff. And then people actually started wanting my art. And so I always say, when a piece of art leaves, it's been adopted. Because I never want to make it about, I'm selling my art. It's not about selling my art. It's what brings me joy is that, especially because I'm not a person that travels, knowing that pieces of me are traveling out throughout the country or in different places that I may never see. I mean, and we'll get to the Palm Springs part. I've lived in Philly all my life. Me coming to Palm Springs is like, I don't know, it's still very surreal in my head. It's hard to think about the things that I did to get myself here, move out on my own. And I'm 58 years old. I've never been on my own. I mean, yeah, I was married and had kids and all that, but I've never been a solo artist, so to speak. So sometimes just looking back and thinking back on that, like I moved myself to a place where I don't necessarily have the support of the family and friends that I know and love, but now I have family and friends here, chosen family, but they're my fucking family, and it's been good. So yeah, I mean, so basically in a nutshell, I mean, what was the scariest thing to happen to me was in turn also the best thing that could have happened to me. Like I say, I mean, it's not always the best for everything, obviously, something, having thoughts of suicide or actually going through with it, or especially if it actually is a success, happens, is not a happy thing, but in my case, getting to a point knowing where I really did want to be. I really did want to be here, and anyway, I don't want to talk in circles either. So
sometimes you have to hit that lowest point to realize just what you have, or find that wheel to go on.
For me, one of my favorite words is perspective. It gave me new perspective. And I mean, it wasn't an easy road. I mean, my kids, it affected my kids, obviously. 5 years later, we're at a point where, we're pretty close for being 2,267 miles away from each other. And yeah, we're in a good place. Even my ex-wife, I mean, she supported me through all this. I mean,
you never know if something's really like the best or worst thing for you until you're farther down on the timeline. Because sometimes the best things in the world end up being the worst things for you. And sometimes those worst moments end up being the parts that actually redefine you and end up being some of the best points. And that's kind of a really good example of that right there.
Yeah, so it's good that through all that I put my family through, and my ex-wife, I love my kids, I love my ex-wife. It's nice that we still remained a family, even through divorce. We're still a family, and I still have all of their support, and I'm happy with that. What else do we have to chat about?
Well, let's go on to the next one, which is, what's the weirdest thing that's ever happened to you?
I guess I'm going to turn this question around a little bit and sort of lighten it up and just talk about some of the the odd things my kids bring up about. But all of my kids go on about how they all have nightmares for me, letting them watch horror movies at very early ages. There was this one time when my son Liam was in kindergarten, and I didn't realize this book I was supposed to read him was like a book report that he was going to talk about the next day. And I had been working all day, so it was a Star Wars book, and I didn't really feel like reading it. So I just made up this story where Princess Leia was running through the desert, and nighttime was coming. And I made up this story where if the nighttime caught up with Princess Leia, would eat her face. So, yeah, my wife was not happy that that's the story that she told at class the next day. But my other son, Colin, always remarks that he always thought our family was a lot like Malcolm in the Middle, and I was like that odd dad on Malcolm in the Middle, just always doing weird things. It's hard to talk about just a particular weird thing, but I am the embodiment of weird and unedited speak. The weird question was the one that I was over obsessing about the whole time because I'm trying to think, like, I don't know what weird has happened to me. I mean, I make weird situations.
Well, we could move on to what's the most memorable moment of your life so far, if you'd like.
Memorable is definitely the birth of my first son. A little life has now come into your world, and from that moment on, everything changes. I mean, gosh, when my son was first born, he was not a crier but a screamer. My then wife, she would be like nervous giving him a bath because he just screamed about giving him a bath under the sink. So we bonded through all that because I was doing a lot of the early stuff, changing the diapers and all that. And yeah, I mean, it's seeing this little being. It's weird, like when you one of your friends or your siblings has a baby, you're holding the baby, you're just like, oh my god, I'm gonna drop this little thing. But when that baby is yours, you're like holding it like you've held this baby all your life. It's just a whole different thing. You enjoyed every diaper you changed, getting up at night. It's just very surreal. I have 3 kids. We had them pretty close together, so I would never be like, oh, I'm gay and I should have lived a totally gay life, have done this to my wife, have not have done this to my kids. Life isn't about what's the best thing or the right thing. It's just learning and moving from that, and then I would never change the direction of my life. I had a family, although I had decent jobs, we still struggled because, sometimes life is about struggling, and we didn't travel, we didn't take vacations, but we were together and we were a family. I've hardly seen any of the world, so that's why I keep coming back to the Palm Springs thing about how I got myself here. I'm like gloating about it, but I'm proud that somehow I just decided that I wanted to do this, and I did do it. And every time I fly back and forth, I don't know why, but I was never nervous about flying. I'm always on that plane, and I'm going to get on that plane, I'm like thinking, like, once I'm in the air, I'm trapped here. It's just, there's so many moments, like just watching a child grow. I mean, being at work, like she'd bring the baby, bring him by on like Halloween, and he was in his little outfit. He was like 1, and he's picking him up at daycare, and just seeing that little dirty face and playing all day, just stuff that kind of stuff you just cannot replace with anything. Not with money, not with trips to Europe, not with cars or clothes or houses. I'm getting close to 60. I mean, I'm getting older. I'm hoping that I have like a 1 in 3 chance that one of these kids is going to wipe my ass when I'm older and in a wheelchair. So if I'm single forever, I'm okay with it. And we can go on and on about stuff with the kids. Gosh, like last January when I had to say goodbye, I was just like, that was hard. My kids are crying. My ex-wife is crying. I go out the house and my 2 sons went out with me and we hugged again. And then I'm driving down the road and I had to turn around because my ex-wife was calling me and like, you'll hug the boys twice, but Reagan's crying because you didn't hug her twice. So then I drove back and gave her a hug, but that was really hard. My grandson was 6 months at that point. It took me 8 months to get home to visit just because of having a new job, and airfare like spiked to like $1,000 to fly home, and I'm like, fuck, I want to see my family. But so that was hard, but now I make it a habit. I've been home twice now in the year that I've been away, so I'm trying to go home like every 3 to 4 months. So I'm keeping my mom's in great health and she's 83, but I'm going to have our loved ones forever. So I got to make sure I keep that in my life too. So that pretty much is that.
Sounds like you're keeping a good balance between your original life and everything, and then this life that you're kind of just now going on this like adventure of a lifetime. I come from a really close family, and goodbyes are like the hardest thing. It's almost like you're never going to see them again every time, but everybody kind of has to go out and live their own life at some point. You're going out and living your life now.
Like when I go home and come back, it's sort of surreal. Like I keep forgetting that I live here. I'm not a guest here anymore. I'm not a visitor that's just visiting and going home. My daily life is here, my work and all that good stuff. And I try not to take that for granted. On Tuesdays, I have a friend, we go scootering around town, and it's like it's like so fucking freeing. It's like I'm not in a car, you're just out. It's just, I don't even recognize the streets I drive on because you're just seeing it from a different vantage point. You're just out there, and it's just total freedom. And it's just like reinvigorating to me. And luckily, I haven't really fallen or broken any teeth. The vanity side of me is all about this hair and my teeth. So I like to have a depth about me, but I do have some shallowness to me.
Peaks and valleys, peaks and valleys.
Peaks and valleys, right. In order to have a deep end of the pool, you have to have a shallow end too.
Speaking of valleys, it's time for the hard one. What's the saddest thing that's ever happened to you?
Especially if you're a child, right? The first time you experience death. First time I experienced death was when my dad's mother, my grandmother, died. That was 1976. So I was relatively young, and it was the first time I'd experienced death and gone to a funeral where everything changed radically after that. Every Sunday, it wasn't like today's world where every Saturday and Sunday is taking your kids to sporting events or cheerleading or this or that. Back in my day, Sundays were you went to your grandparents, and went to one and then we went to the other. It was like when my grandmother died, it was just like every Sunday was like just people from. My dad and his 5 or 10 kids, so there was always a lot of people and a lot of cousins. There, all this stuff going on, and then my grandmother died, and then all of a sudden, there wasn't the Sunday dinners anymore and all that cohesion. Seeing your cousins every week. My kids growing up, they barely saw their cousins. We all had our own lives going on. You would see them at holidays, but I don't know about you, but like every Sunday you're seeing your cousins and doing stuff like that. So it's just like just one person dying just created a whole change in everybody's lives. Suddenly you're not seeing people you're used to seeing before and all that kind of stuff. And I've always been a very emotional person, so I did a lot of crying there. I also cried when Buffy the Vampire Slayer died. That's a whole difference. That was also one of my saddest moments.
I hear you on that one.
My mindset is different. As we get older, I realize part of living is dying. And I don't know if it's something necessarily to be sad about. Yeah, you'll miss not seeing somebody, but at the same time, we have our lives, and let's make the most of our lives in each day. And none of us knows what comes after this. Maybe nothing comes after this, because my mother and I always have these debates about, life after death. And she's all about this reincarnation stuff. And I'm thinking, well, I'm like, sort of why I'm like, this doesn't make sense, because I'm a logic kind of person. And like, this is why we procreate, so that when we die, part of us lives on. Again, I don't want to touch on the things that might be touchy for other people.
That kind of leads into the last question, which is, based on your life experience, what's the best advice you can give the people out there listening?
I would say when somebody says like, you're doing something, or they'll be like, you really missed your call. Like, I'm like, you've never missed your call until you're down for the count. If you have a passion, go for that passion, even if you think that you can't, because sometimes we are the people that stop ourselves, not other people. In the end, when things don't happen for us, we have to look at ourselves. If we're not happy in the job we're at, if we're not happy with the person we're with, I think sometimes, just say in general, I'm not saying everybody, but we get comfortable doing what we're doing, whether it's good or it's bad, whether it feels good or it doesn't feel good. We get comfortable in doing what we do on a daily basis, and sometimes we have to realize that, life, there's all sorts of opportunities out there with life. There's just, this day and age, there's so many things you could do that are out of the box that can just think of all the people that one day they just have an idea, or somehow their idea turns into something, and they're doing what they want. It's funny. I always love like watching TV shows where there's like these people in offices, big windows, and I'm like, I just want a job like that where it just looks like it's fun every day, not really thinking about the reality of it. So we all have our thoughts on what ideal is. I mean, even right now, I tell myself, I like the job I have, but it's a type of job that's somewhat physical, and I am getting to be an older guy, and I maybe like to do something a little less physical. So, I have to tell myself, I always tell myself, this first year of being here, living here, I did find a job there, and I'm comfortable, or I have to eat, and I can do things with my friends. And now I figured if I could do all that and get myself here, that I can find me a job. Who cares how that I'm older, or I'd stop worrying about age. I think that's another thing that we get hooked up on. We get so hooked up on age. Like, if I'm in sports and I'm 36, I'm old. If I'm 36 and running a company, I'm too young, it's, if you're, in your 70s and you're the president, that's fine. But if you're 70s and working at Home Depot, it's, hey, old man, it's such cute visions. And these things remained entrenched, just like, race or, somebody's gay. Like, I don't have to project or have any sign on my chest that I'm gay. I'm comfortable being gay. I don't care if people know I'm gay, but I don't have to wear. I'm just saying, like, if we could just get down to being people and not getting it to labels all the time, I think I would just be an awesome world now. Getting preachy.
It's true. People want to label everything.
Yeah, everything has to be labeled because it makes us comfortable. I don't know, but I guess, like I say, I get very long-winded. She could put a paper clip on her table, or we'll talk about that paper clip for like hours. But it's just really, it's not always easy, but there's so much out there for everybody, and you just have to realize that we all have gifts. I do believe that everybody is equal in some way. If somebody has gifts in one area, we have gifts and we have deficiencies, and that all balances out. And you know what? Sometimes we don't even realize what our gifts are. So, like me, I haven't done much art since moving out here because I've been more active, but that itch is coming, and I'll get back into doing art. I like to do poetry. Like, I have a Twitter. I used to just write poetry on my Twitter, and I had like 3,000 followers. And then I just had this bright idea to start posting pictures of myself on Twitter. Now I have 77,000 followers, and do I sometimes put nudity up? Yes, but I like to have a balance. I put my art up, and I still post my poetry. So I'm proud that I have 77,000 followers, and I'm doing it sort of on my own terms. It's not like a lot of other people who have the same amount of followers or more, or like it's, gearing towards porn site and OnlyFans and all that, which I don't have. I'm not saying that I haven't touched on little areas of pushing the envelope. But anyway, again, it's just like, if you feel passionate about something, don't let it go.
And it's never too late.
It's never too late.
Like you said, a lot of times it's usually you holding yourself back rather than age or anything like that. I mean, there is, of course, obstacles that are true obstacles and everything, but a lot of the most powerful obstacles against us are in our own heads.
Just have to let go. Is it easy to let go? No.
I always say nothing worthwhile is ever easy.
We all hold on to things. We hold on to past loves. We hold on to past jobs. We only have this moment. We only have this moment right now we're in. It doesn't matter if I have $1 million or I have no dollars. We're all the same because we just have the moment. So it's just whether I'm sitting in a chair or I'm swimming or I'm flying or playing poker. And you had that moment. So you just take that moment and make the most of each moment. Like I was a bank teller one time. I was a really shitty bank teller. I was on my last warning because my till was never good because I was just all over the place. But then I got good because I focused on every fucking transaction I did as if it was the only one there. And each day I was like to the penny. So, I mean, I always think back on that when I think about how I've adjusted my life. I think about you just focusing on each moment there. And even not every moment's going to be good, but it doesn't matter. You just keep going. Don't let any moments pull you down. So, you know what? If you're in love with somebody and they tell you to fuck off, well then, you don't need somebody that wants you to fuck off. So you just have to think about yourself. You have to be selfish in a bit in order to be the best person you are. If you have kids and you're always sacrificing your happiness for your kids are going to know you're not happy. They're going to think you're miserable, whatever. But you have to bring yourself happiness in order to give happiness to others and bring happiness to your life, and so on and so on. They told two friends, and they told two friends.
Well, I have really enjoyed this. You are quite a prophetic man. You've got a lot of wisdom all over the board, and so I think everybody got a little bit extra from this episode. We talked about 5 questions, but we have I've talked about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, this was awesome. I'm glad that you invited me to do this. Yeah, we always have to have the shallow pool. Oh shit, I'm like, oh, wet. You're making me nervous. No, this was awesome. I appreciate we got to do this. Again, I mean, Palm Springs is here. You've got a place to hang out when you want to visit. And we could do a podcast together from here with somebody else.
Sounds like a plan to me. We'll make it happen.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited about this. I'll be excited to see how it all plays out, or see how much you edit out of me.
I want to thank you all for listening today. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Also, check out the video podcast at Handlebar ASMR on YouTube for extras.